Now I think ultimately this begs the question, is track cycling a dying sport? Days later, we're back in an airport again. Today is a travel day to Paraguay for Pan Am Champs, and we have the essentials. And on our way there, I want to talk about track cycling and my thoughts on it, and address some comments from a recent video. And also, let's talk about a big announcement that happened this week. So let's talk about the first big news this week, which was the announcement of the cancellation of the UCI Track Champions League. There was a joint statement that came out on Monday from the UCI and Warner Bros. And the Track Champions League that the series has been canceled. Now, I had my own issues with this series. I thought there were a few things that weren't exactly fair to some of the riders that weren't invited, but I thought the actual initiative of the racing was great. It was a great way to promote track cycling. It was a great show, and from an outside viewing perspective, it was really fun to watch. I obviously did not get invited to Champions League. I would have loved to race it, but I never got invited to the series. I guess I wasn't fast enough to be selected. I didn't agree with some of the point structures that they used and some of the points that the athletes got towards the international ranking. But I thought overall, from a viewing perspective and a racing perspective, it was a great event and a great way to promote track cycling. So a statement that came out from Track Champions League was long, lengthy, and didn't really explain a whole lot. But if you read between the lines, you can probably think it was about money. Looking back on the series, when it first started in 2021, it was an 8-year deal. Now, from what I've heard from some riders that have done the series, a lot of them loved it, some didn't like it that much. But I think it was still a great event for track cycling. It seemed like the crowds were always sold out, and they put on a great show. Now, I think all of this is actually a very, very huge loss for track cycling. It was a great event, very spectator-friendly, and it was broadcast around the world. And I think it's a huge loss for the growth of the sport. Now, in that same statement, Warner Bros. And UCI did say they're going to help revitalize the Nations Cup series. I'm skeptical. I'm going to leave the link to some articles that came out from the UCI and some other media companies down in the description below, so if you want to take a read for yourself, they're right down in the description. So in that same statement, Warner Bros. And the UCI Track Champions League said that they're going to help bolster and revitalize the Nations Cup series and bring it back to 3 events. Which we're going to talk about World Cups and why I don't really think that's that great. Just like that, flight number 1 is done. Okay, so I want to address a comment that I got a few times on my most recent vlog from Turkey at the Nations Cup, asking why there's only 1 Nations Cup this season. And that's something I don't really know the answer to, but I'm going to give it my best guess. So right now, 2025 is a very light year on the calendar. We have 1 Nations Cup, our continental championships for everyone, which would be Euros, Asians, Oceanias, and now our Pan American Championships we're headed to right now. And finally, World Championships in October in Santiago, Chile, which is going to be a good track. I'm excited for that one. Now, the Nations Cup works like any other sporting event would, I believe. Nations need to put in bids to host the races, and this year, being a post-Olympic year, a lot of countries didn't, and that's why we had only the 1 Nations Cup in Turkey. Sounds like going forward, we're going to have a few more races on the calendar, which would be back to a normal 3-race schedule, which like it had been the past 3 seasons. Now, in the article that UCI released, they announced they're going to revitalize the Nations Cup and rename it back to the World Cup Series. It has not been named the World Cup Series since 2020. And back then, there were 6 races on the calendar. When they announced the name change to the Nations Cup, they announced it alongside the Champions League Series. And they brought it down to 3 races and moved the season to a different part of the year. They wanted to make track cycling more of a summer sport again, where it had historically been done over the winter. Now, I don't really care what it's called, whether it's the Nations Cup or the World Cup, but the fact is that they have reduced the amount of races that we do have. They've changed the point structure a little bit and made them hold a little bit more weight, which I don't think is a bad thing. Now, one thing I did love about Champions League is how easy it was to watch. It was broadcast everywhere, and that's one thing that I find extremely frustrating about the Nations Cup series. It's hard to watch. Most recently, the Turkey Nations Cup was broadcast on YouTube, on the UCI channel, but it was geo-blocked in a lot of places, which for friends and family can be very frustrating. I believe in North America, most of the cycling races are broadcast on flow bikes, which a lot of people don't get, which leads you to resort on things like TIS cycling. And if anyone's used TIS cycling, it's not very reliable and it's very frustrating to use. Now, of course, you could subscribe to all these things and that'd be fine, but it's just one of those things that keeps adding up. Now, I do believe we need to do a better job of getting it in front of more people because honestly, I believe it's a great sport to watch. I guess I'm a little biased because I'm an athlete in it, but I think it's a very exciting and viewer-friendly sport to watch. All the action is right there in front of you. So on one hand, I do believe that maybe canceling Champions League was not a great idea, but it's been done. Despite the challenges that track cycling is facing right now, I do believe that it's actually very much a growing sport. But I'm gonna explain that in a little bit because we gotta go board this flight. Flight number 2. So yes, I do believe the sport of track cycling is growing, especially in North America. Take Canada, for example, 10 years ago, there was not a single indoor 250-meter track in the country. And as of 2026, there will now be 3. When you invest in facilities, athletes come. And I think we've been showing that over the last few years with success at the international level. And take most recently, Paris 2024, we qualified a full track team, which not a lot of countries can do. And that's a direct result of the investment in these facilities. And not to mention, the track we were at in Turkey and the one we're going to here in Paraguay were built within the last 3 years. There's new facilities popping up all over the world, all the time. Now, one unfortunate thing for the track cycling scene was the pandemic. Before the pandemic, winter drop-in sessions would average 30 to 40 people. They'd be lined up at the rail to get on the track when we were coming off after our training sessions. And as of recently, it's been more like 10 or 15 people, which I think is a direct result of the pandemic. A lot of people sold off their equipment during that time, and they didn't really come back to it after that, which is unfortunate. But I think over the next few years, it will rebound, and we'll get those numbers back up again. All right, 7 hours to Paraguay. Okay, made it to Paraguay. Trying to collect all the bags right now. We are missing a few pieces, not all of it made on the plane from Panama and from Toronto, so we gotta find out what's here and what's not. The joys of traveling with bikes. All right, we made it. The time is now 1:30 in the morning. Just made it to the hotel. Airport was a little bit hectic, but we are arriving at our hotel here at the Holiday Inn Express. Got a pretty nice room here. Probably the nicest room I've had for a Pan Am Champs. Not saying a lot. So to sum all of this up, no, I don't think track cycling is a dying sport. I think it's actually quite the opposite. Do I think the loss of Champions League is going to hurt the sport in the short term? A little bit, but there'll be more races that pop up in the future. And with anything, each of these races will face their challenges. Now, it being a post-Olympic year, it's probably the best year to have that happen. So hopefully, over the next few years, the next few seasons, we do see a boost in the series and a boost in track cycling interest overall. I believe the sport's growing in popularity, especially here in North America, and I think we're gonna have a very good amount of momentum leading in towards the LA 2028 Olympics. Anyways, that's all I got on this one. That's our travel day here to Paraguay for Pan Am Champs. Gonna be a really cool week coming up, gonna be a busy week, and of course I'll be vlogging all of that. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.